So what are the two objectives of the reference checks? First, you have to validate the information, what you have got, because everybody lies, and this includes also the candidates, and not only low level, this is not exceptional, also high level candidates lie a lot. I had a CEO candidate once who said that he had worked as a marketing manager of a region, but when I made the reference check, it appeared that he was a marketing trainee without any real responsibility. Then recently we had a case with a candidate from China, also to an executive C-level position, and my client or our client liked him very much, and we had to hold them back, not to sign the contract and not to start the employment relationship before we have completed the reference checks. And we did it with a partner in China, and it appeared that the candidate had lied everything. He hadn't even visited the schools he said he had graduated from, for example. But the contract he was supposed to, and our client was ready to sign, was that he would have 100,000 compensation if he is fired within a year for any reasons. So he was already ready to board the plane to pick up his 100,000 compensation. So the main thing you have to consider is that you are calling for information, not for opinions. And the information you ask is first about what this person did, what were the objectives, and what were the results. This is the main basic things you have to ask. And this is something the person you are calling to is well aware of. You are not, and this is information you need to make your hiring decision. You might also be interested in why the candidate you want to employ now, why did he leave? You better find out some concrete things, not that it was on mutual consent. So anything happened, why did you agree so that it's better for this person to leave? And then there are some opinions. The most important are the facts, but there are some opinions you are also interested in. And first, you want to find about the red flags, you want to find the weaknesses, but when asking about strengths and weaknesses, you get a very formal answer, and usual part of it is that I can't recall any weaknesses or any issues or any problems with the candidate. It's a nonsense question, the weaknesses question, also on a job interview, but also in this reference call. But then if you ask it on the other, a little bit differently, like the first question here, is there something you think the candidate might have benefited from improving in his performance or qualities? This is something where you might get a good answer. And the most important question is the middle one here. Would you employ this person again, or would you work with them again? And in what capacity and in what role? Sometimes the person you're calling might say that, well, I would like to work with him, but not in this role we were working with. So then you can get really very informative answer if they specify what the role should be, what is suitable to this person. And also sometimes you get to some interesting recommendations. If you ask, what would you recommend me if I'm going to employ him or anyone else who would be the employer? So these are the opinions worth asking. Some bad questions, which I don't recommend to ask, I have already mentioned the strengths and weaknesses. This is a nonsense question. So also, what kind of manager, what kind of leader, what is the work ethics, how would you rate the candidate from 1 to 10? All this is more or less nonsense. We already touched the last one, that maybe as a conversation facilitator, it might make sense, but you can't take on face value anyone's opinion who's in a scale you are not aware of. So the final thoughts, how many references you should take? The typical amount is 2 or 3. And there is some indication or some research saying that if you do more, it's better. But then we talk about 4 usually. So it might be that if you do more than 3 or do 4 or 5, it might be more more validity or more predictive value. So now who is going to make it? Of course, I would prefer and I would recommend that the hiring manager makes these calls. But even more important is that these calls have to be done properly, and the questions asked must be the right ones. If the hiring manager does it the way like we saw in this video, this is not good. And we have already touched this, that are you allowed to talk to someone else than these people whom the candidate has introduced. I would strongly recommend to talk other people as well. And if you feel better, or if you feel that in your country this is required, ask your candidate's permission for this. But this is something you get. You might get much more interesting information about if you call someone whom the person hasn't really recommended to. This is Ben Horowitz recommends this, that he calls these backdoor references. So it's the front door references is talking to people whom the candidate recommends you or introduces, but then the backdoor reference is that you just check whom you know, who might know this person, and talk to them. There is only one rule, of course, you never should talk to the current employer, unless the candidate has explicitly said that this is okay. In some cases, it might happen that they have so good relationship with their boss that the boss is aware that the candidate is considering moving or leaving.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me more about his results? What did he achieve? Mm-hmm. Okay, can you recall if there was anything you thought might have been better in his work? Results, ethics? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any development areas? Can you think of one or two things that he might have been benefited from learning, or qualities that you might have recommend him to develop? Okay. How would you describe him as a team leader? Mm-hmm. Okay, what about the team members? What would they say about him? Mm-hmm. Okay, these issues, the conflict that you mentioned, was this a rare occasion or a pattern, perhaps? Uh-huh. Would you employ him again if you would need a person with his competences and experience? I see. Mm-hmm.
So I would mention one thing, which you probably noticed yourself as well, that this manager now used every occasion to ask additional questions. So you never say that, okay, yes. So you just get the answer, and then you ask a specific comment about this, about something what the person you are talking to has mentioned. Like there was this conflict. Was it a pattern or was it just one occasion?